Welcome everyone to the post-game lobby where I'm joined by Krepo, Vitality's Cabochard, and Fnatic's Reckless. And we're going to wrap up the week so far and take a little bit of a look back at the spring split. So first off, welcome Reckless.
Thank you very much. Coming
in after a win. Now, the first series we want to focus on is your series versus ROCAT to kind of wrap up the week. And we talked a lot about it, but I wanted to get your perspective overall. How did you feel the series went?
I think obviously the series went a lot better than our series against Misfits, but since we only really had one day, as Zoa said, since we weren't fully prepared going into the Misfits game to prepare for this game, I don't think we had still the full grasp of how we wanted to draft, and we had some questionable decisions, especially in the second game. But I think all in all, we figured it out pretty well, and I think we went away with a well-deserved win.
Yeah, I think earned it overall in the end, and it was good to see. Curious, Camille coming into the mid lane, is that something that you guys had planned for, or is this something that you kind of prepared on the fly?
I think Caps is a player that plays pretty much everything, so when we got the opportunity to play Camille, we were kind of aware that they would most likely go Shen into it. So we already decided beforehand that if that was the case, we would put it mid instead and try to get a better match up top. And I think these kind of things is what we didn't necessarily do against Misfits or generally in the beginning of the split. So if we can continue with those draft priorities, I think we will have a much better time playing out the game.
Would you not say that if you run two physical damage dealers in an Iron tank comp and you have a lane on bot that actually lose, that you maybe even lost the draft game one? Because I feel like you had a really strong trade, level one that game, but if they play it half decent, I feel like you get pushed in.
I think Varus is just too OP, so it didn't really matter game one, but I think game 2 and game 3 were much closer in that regard. So since we were giving away the Varus, as soon as we did any draft mistakes, it would cost us the game. So I think draft 3 was okay, but draft 2 wasn't that good.
Did see some adjustments to the draft, a lot of early priority on the Ivern, and conveniently, Amazing has now won Player of the Series for that Ivern performance, so it looks like while we were skeptical, it does knit him a Player of the Series overall. And I want your impressions of Amazing. We kind of talked about him. Struggled a lot in the last week, feels like it's coming together this week. Is he still feeling like everything's going well with the team?
I think Amazing is one of the most hardworking players, actually. He always strives to improve, and even though he doesn't always do it in the best way, I think he always has like a good meaning behind it. So he's actually one of the teammates I've enjoyed working with the most, because I feel like we're just improving at such a rate that I didn't expect beforehand. So even though like we didn't pick up Ivern for the Misfits game, just the fact that he was able to do so yesterday and bring it up today and play 3 games in a row was really a showcase of how he actually is as a player.
Yeah, solid adaptation, of course. The other series that we want to take a look back on is Vitality versus H2K. Cabo, we've been criticizing everyone else today. Now I think it's your turn in the hot seat. Talk to me about this series. Give me your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I guess like first game it was just we have good comp. We played correctly, I suppose. We just played the map, and when they go for the kills, we go for the tower. So even though we are pretty far behind in kills, we are.
This was a risky fight to take, though. You guys could have easily lost this one.
Yeah, but we played wrong. But we end up winning it, so who cares, right? And yeah, the 2 other games, like game 2, we have losing bot lane, and yeah, once again, when you lose bot tower, it snowballs the map just so much easier. Then it was pretty hard. And game 3, I guess they went for the Ivern Varus comp, which like we see more and more. Like, you know, you have winning bot lane, and if you send Ivern 3v3 bot, you're gonna always win, because you just poke, and then you have shield and Daisy, so you're gonna get the tower once again. And yeah, I guess that's it.
I mean, it was solid to see the first win, of course. Didn't really work out in the end. We saw this hyper-aggressive engagement. Unfortunately, met misfortune. Just got to sit in the back line and dish out all that damage. You got your hands on Camille top. We saw Fnatic take it mid. Do you still feel like this is a pick that needs to be banned very early in the draft phase, one of those mandatory red side bans?
It's still a very strong pick here, obviously. Like, it has some flaws, like any pick. And I think people are more and more letting it open in scrims, for example. And like, we can see that either you can play the Shen or Poppy and just try to play on the side of the map, lose a bit on the lane, but then you're Shen and you're going to be fine in teamfight, or play some split push like we saw in other regions, like, I don't know, we saw Darius in China or Fiora in Korea or something, so that can work too as well, but it's more risky.
Do you think we'll see more of those counter picks sort of come out, more Camille left open in the future, as we've now seen it mid and top lane, or is no one really going to realistically take the risk at this point?
I think people can take the risk, yeah, but once again, Camille, we saw her on 4 roles, right? Mm-hmm. And like that's as well like something you take into account when you draft against it, that at any moment they can just flex it and you have to ban it on the first rotation, or like let's say they try to ban 2 things and then it's so OP on this role because you ban the 2 counters. So we saw it mid, we saw it top, we saw it jungle, and even support in NA.
Yeah. At this point in the season, you guys both obviously aspirations for being at the top of the table, but as we look at the first round robin, as it's closed out, when we bring up the standings, we can see you guys both kind of at the middle right now, and I want to talk about expectations for yourself early in the split. Cabo, we heard earlier that you felt like you'd rather be losing early and coming into playoffs where it matters.
I'd rather be winning early than after, but if I have to choose one or the other, I prefer winning at the end,
Yeah, and Drakos,
Hopefully you peak though.
We will.
Drakos, is it kind of the same situation over on Fnatic? Are you guys hoping to ramp up over time here as you're currently sitting at third place in the group?
I mean, we're definitely looking at the long-term goal here of making it far into the playoffs. But at the same time, I think pretty much every series we've played so far has been a really good learning experience. So it's quite draining mentally to go through them because they're always coming with like a different lesson. But I feel like with this roster, we have like a lot of matureness and we're able to go through them in the right way. So I feel like even though we're perhaps not having our draft in order yet, I feel like we're just improving week by week, so we'll get there for sure.
All right, well, next week, Group A will face Group A and Group B will face each other for the first time, so that's going to be interesting to see. But we're going to look ahead at the second round robin and our first look at the cross-group play. So if you're joining us in client, hit us up at youtube.com/LOLesports for the full-length post-game lobby. All right, now we're into the full-length post-game lobby. It's just that easy. So let's talk a little bit about cross-group play. We'll start with you, Reckless. We heard Soaz say that Unicorns Love kind of the big contender in Group B. Is that a sentiment that you share? And if so, like, what makes them such a big threat right now?
I think, first of all, it's obviously something I share. We've been scrimming them a lot, and I think actually scrims is their biggest strength because they are one of the few teams that are able to translate their scrim performance to stage. I think most of the teams right now, if not almost all of the other teams, are struggling a lot with playing out scrims or stage performance same way as scrims. Meanwhile, Unicorns are just doing their thing in scrims and doing their thing on stage, and there's no one really putting any stop to it.
Because that was, without pointing any names, but last year there was a lot of teams that were reluctant to scrim the Unicorns because they were quote-unquote fiesta games where they went too far forward, too snowbally. But it seems they're bringing that style to LCS where they have zero hesitation, they just go in. Is it now, are more teams striving to scrim against the Unicorns now?
I think scrimming Unicorns is a really unique thing because you are able to practice so much fighting in general. But at the same time, it's, as I said before, like really mentally draining playing against them or just playing longer series in general. And I think it takes a lot of time to get used to playing against Unicorns.
Because you usually get sucked into the chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like once you start fighting mid over and over and over,
Yeah.
how hard is it to practice strategy when you play against the Unicorns?
I actually think Unicorns have a lot of strategy in mind. I don't feel like they're taking as many random fights as they did before. I think they're always playing at the right side of the map, and they're always having like an objective in mind, even though there's a lot of fights on the way there. So, if anything, I feel like scrimming them is actually giving you a lot, and it's just a matter of like keeping it up mentally and getting through the scrims.
But their main style, or just the meta right now, seems to be very kind of end up in a team fight. There's very few 1-3-1, and if there is, it's not executed that strongly. Cabochard, what's your take on 1-3-1 in the current meta?
I mean, it can work. We saw today maybe in the game, the second game against Fnatic, when Rice could have gone there. Like there is some compositions that sometimes that you can just go freely on the side and know you have the advantage with champions like Rice or something. And
is Europe good enough to 1-3-1 right now, or are teams struggling too much?
Yeah, Europe is good enough. Like maybe not the best, but the more you play, the more you're gonna train, obviously, and be better at it. So if you keep it team fighting in 2 months, you're not gonna be better at 1-3-1. So.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when we look at 1-3-1, obviously, like Ryze is the first champion that stands out to me, of course, known for independent kind of side lane split pushing. What other mid lane champions are we going to see that are going to be effective in this role? We saw, Fnatic try Zed, we saw Vitality try Zed. How many champions are really available? Because Corki seems to be very popular, but it's not really one of those champions we equate to the 1-3-1 style. Is there enough in the meta where teams can consistently look for a 1-3-1 option against team fighting comps?
I don't think it's actually that much about the mid lane pick. I think it's much more about the top lane pick. So, for example, on red side, you almost always have the opportunity to go for a counter pick in the likes of Fiora or these kind of champions that no one is really playing, but I think are okay. Like, you just, as Cabochard said, like, teams are good enough to play it, but it's also really risky. So, I think it's definitely something that will come out more and more because once, you don't get the Ivern or you don't get the Varus or the Corki, or you have no real, matchup to fight them. So you have to go with another approach to the game, and that's usually 1-3-1. So I don't think it's necessarily about the mid laner, because I think a Corki can go side lane, a Syndra can go side lane, a Ryze can go side lane, as long as she has the vision or he has the vision. So it's much more about the top lane pick and kind of just drafting for it, I guess.
That's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like we've seen inconsistency in drafting in EU when it comes to roles. I feel like Fnatic, a team we consider to have pretty solid drafts one week, next team not as good. We've seen the same thing for Vitality, and actually pretty consistently across a lot of our teams. And Krepo, I want your impression. Are we seeing a lot of bad drafts from EU? Are people experimenting? What's your opinion overall?
I mean, I don't have insight in the scrim culture, but a lot of games I see, I think what's happening a lot in Europe right now is that bad drafts don't get punished. Because like in my opinion, like Fnatic game 1 is just not a good draft because like you have a matchup bot lane that should on theory just get pushed in. You have a mid lane that gets pushed in, you have a top lane that gets pushed in. And then Ivern should just not be able to jungle whatsoever. And there's countless examples of that. So I have a hard time evaluating whether I'm just wrong and dumb or people are getting away with murder or if this is an acceptable margin of error. But I do think we need more consistency in drafting overall. And I feel like teams are catching up. When teams are so drastically switching over, when like Misfits bring out the Ivern comp and now everybody seems to want to play it, I think there's definitely room for improvement still.
Curious where that's going to take us in the coming weeks. We talked a little bit about counter options to the Camille being left open. Ivern now appears to be rising in popularity. We've heard Graves come out as a counter pick as well. How lethal is the Ivern right now? How much of a priority should he be in pick and ban?
I mean, I think one of the reasons why he's so strong is that when you know you have the pushing bot lane and you send this jungler bot, as I said, you're going to win every 3v3, and once again, the bot tower is going to snowball you the whole map pretty much. So many teams play it that way, and like the flows it gets pretty much is like the level 3 and level 4, you're not going to win 2v2s, you can get invaded, like this kind of stuff. But I guess people, when they play Kha'Zix, they just try to farm for the level 6 something, and they don't abuse maybe the weaknesses in the opposite side, and Ivern ends up playing for his strength, and you lose bot tower.
Reckless.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ivern is really strong right now, and I think Varus is really strong right now as well. So if it's not already happening enough, like with people opening Camille or opening LeBlanc, I don't think Rengar should be open, but I think the other two are okay.
Trade any champion except Rengar?
Yeah, every champion except Rengar. But either way, it feels like more and more people are going to look towards this because right now, if you're blue side and you just like ban out Ivern and take the Varus, I don't feel like there's too much counterplay. So I think it's going to be much more of a trend trading like perhaps an OP for Ivern Varus or Ivern for Varus and OP. So I think this is something that will happen a lot more for the future.
Now, as we kind of get closer to cross-group play, both groups like have pretty stylistically different teams. I'd say at the top we see G2 be one of the few teams to successfully kind of execute a 1-3-1, what we saw from Echo yesterday or earlier in the week. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious, as you guys move into cross-group play, of course, Cabo, you'll be playing Group A, Reckless, you'll be moving over to play against Group B. Is there any team that you're really interested in playing against stylistically that you think you guys match up well against or not so well against?
Personally, I would like to play HK because Fabian is in HK. But I think they're really good right now, so it's going to be definitely a tough game. I think we're actually playing them before the IM Katowice week, so there shouldn't be too many weeks until then. But other than that, I think it's hard to tell. Like if Group B is stronger than Group A, I think there's some teams that are good and some teams that are not so good. But as we've seen already, like many things change over the week. Like one team can go from being one of the best looking to one of the worst looking in a matter of weeks. So I think it's
there's still hope, Cabo.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there.
Same for us.
You can't just put him on blast like that. He doesn't even play a game day. You're like, all right, Cabo, don't worry. Well, Cabo, let's turn to you as well. I mean, which team are you most curious to play in the opposite group?
I mean, we're gonna take every game as it comes, and just I guess since we're not already like we make a lot of mistakes, like we get hard players and things. Like we have to focus on us getting better. So I think playing the best opponent like G2 seems really good, and even Misfit. And we're gonna just play them and like focus on the mistake and keep getting better. There is not really someone that I have in mind that we want to play or.
I imagine scrim culture right now is teams in A scrim teams from Group B, and you don't really scrim too much within your own group. Is that gonna kind of influence the matchups that you go on like mind game further, since you have like a lot of history? For example, when you guys play the Unicorns, do you think the scrims are gonna play in, or is the meta evolving too much from week to week?
I think the meta is evolving too much week to week, but at the same time, I haven't really felt like we've been scrimming Group B more than Group A, actually. I think we've had quite some scrims with both Misfits and G2, and it's not necessarily that you're just scrimming people from Group B, because after all, most of the time you only have one game a week, so there's at least three teams in your group that you're able to scrim.
Well, coming up next week, I feel like one matchup that we're kind of dancing around is the matchup between Vitality and Fnatic. And I don't want to put you guys too much on the spot here, but I just want general thoughts on feelings on how...
That's
how
dirty, Drakos.
I don't want them to fight each other. I just want to know how they're feeling. Because, I mean, we bring it together. They're going to fight. We can dance around it all we want, but it's going to happen. It's happening on Friday. Let's go to Reckless first. How are you feeling about the matchup? And what are your opinions on Vitality?
I think it's really hard to tell because we're struggling so much ourselves, but at the same time, Vitality is probably a team that struggles even more. So
Fair.
It should be a game that we go home with a win. But at the same time, as I said, you never really know because so much can change in a week, and the meta is going to change as well. Maybe it fits them better, or maybe it fits us better. Can't really tell, but definitely both teams are looking like they have a lot of mistakes to fix.
All right, Cabo, thoughts on Fnatic?
Yeah, I think we're just gonna prepare some Soraka counters and we're gonna be fine. The 2-0 is gonna kick in then.
I guess good to
Make
keep
sure
it
you pick
brief.
Ignite. Just in
Okay.
case.
Succinct,
Ignite on both.
succinct strategy coming in from Cabo and all of Vitality, it appears, on the...
I think it makes sense. If you pick Ignite on Chani, so when he goes down, he can actually take one guy with him, and then it's a 1-for-1 trade. I think it's worth
Oh
it.
yeah, you're bringing up something.
Coaching Vitality right here.
All right. Well, don't get too biased. We're going to have to give Fnatic some advice later, too. So, we keep
I've already criticized their
even.
draft enough.
Okay, is that...
I'm done before these players hate me.
All right. Well, tomorrow, the European Challenger Series will kick off for the year, and Stress is going to give us a quick rundown of the teams and what we can expect.
Thank you very much, Drakos, and hopefully ease some of the tension on the desk there. That was getting spicy for a moment. And you are correct, Drakos. Tomorrow is the start of the European Challenger Series, and this is the most hype Challenger Series I think we've ever had, especially here in Europe. And I think the best way of illustrating just how hype it is by breaking some of the rosters down, giving you a few key players to watch. And let's start with Reckless's potential teammates, or at least sister team in Fnatic Academy here. We've highlighted a very, very familiar name. Mr. Rales, a mainstay in the European LCS, actually has never played a game in Challenger Series despite qualifying through CSQ twice. So he joins Kikis, who obviously has a pedigree of going through Challenger himself as well, and the rest of Fnatic Academy in what is sure to be a very strong team coming into the spring split of Challenger. Another team that qualified through CSQ is Team Kinguin. Their AD carry Woolite used to be a mainstay in the EULCS and has really been putting out performances here and there in Challenger over the last few splits. It's an all-Polish lineup, so they're sure to have a lot of support from their fan base, and we're excited to see what this lineup can do because there is a lot of tough competition in EUCS, and one of the teams that they're going to be competing with that has also been in Challenger for a while is Millennium. The French organization returns to EUCS with an unchanged mid laner, but a fairly different roster everywhere else. We've highlighted Pretty because he has been a key player for Millennium over the last few splits, and while a lot of his teammates have gone on to have a lot of success in the LCS, Pretty still finds himself here, now surrounded by a lot of good players. We'll see whether his Anivia comes out, as he's followed in Froggen's footsteps time and time again with that synonymous pick for himself. Speaking of success in the LCS, Misfits moved up to the LCS last split, and Misfits Academy have joined the Challenger Series. Their support Dreams actually split games with Ignar in the last split and had a pretty good Bard when we saw him playing in the summer split of 2016. Interested to see whether Dreams Bard is at the same level and how he compare with Yuki 60, who has been around Challenger for a couple of years himself. Misfits Academy, certainly a team to watch. Everybody's eyes for European Challenger on the last two teams, though. Some of the biggest names we have ever had, even in the European esports scene here for League of Legends. Paris Saint-Germain wade into the scene with one of the most scaring, frightful lineups we have ever seen in Challenger Series. This guy right here, Pilot, comes almost straight out of the LCK and is even placed 4th in LCK playoffs. One of the only players to have a win over SKT in a game in a World Championship year. This guy is the real deal, and with the rest of the lineup, some European mainstays, PSG are a real force to be reckoned with, and everybody is expecting them to be in the promotion tournament come the end of the split. The other team everybody is predicting, the other traditional sports organization, the other football team, Schalke 04. We had them in the LCS last split. They dropped down into Challenger and revamp their roster. We've again highlighted a support. It's a European mainstay. Vander joined the lineup. His last series was in the World semi-finals this past year. He comes straight off that hot H2K run right into Challenger, along with a lot of other familiar faces. The team lineups are hype, the matchups are hype. Tomorrow we're going to be bringing you Kinguin versus Schalke, PSG versus Fnatic Academy, and Misfits Academy versus Millennium. It all kicks off at 3 p.m. Central European time tomorrow. Vedius and Medic are going to be bringing you all of the action. And this season is going to be a real interesting Challenger series, Drakos.
I mean, I'm ready. We got a lot of clubs investing. We got a lot of strong talent lineups now. I know you guys are almost entirely focused on LCS for the most part, but I'm curious, since Fnatic Academy is sort of that sister team, Reckless, what are your thoughts on the Challenger Series teams that we're seeing? Do you feel like they're getting stronger and stronger as the years go on?
Actually, I think our Challenger Series team right now is stronger than our main team. We've been scrimming them quite a bit, and we're also working together in an office, so we're not necessarily sharing room, but we're in the same workspace and talking to each other daily. And I've watched some of their scrims, and I think, generally speaking, they're super solid, and they've played with each other for quite a while now. So they definitely have a shot at making it far. But at the same time, with PSG and Schalke in there, I don't really know if they'll make it all the way.
You're talking about your kind of sub-team here as they're a unit and you guys are a unit, but
yeah.
I feel initially the announcement was a 10-man roster from Fnatic. Is it too early to see potential like swaps come out or just testers in LCS and not? Or is that just going to disrupt maybe too much building?
I think the fact that they're playing right now is probably going to hinder potential swaps, but it's not something we have ruled out at all, and it's not something we have even talked about, actually. I think it's much more a question of time and just like us getting comfortable and them getting comfortable, then potentially doing swaps by swaps. But I think all 10 players are really talented in their own ways, so it's definitely something we can look into for the future.
Well, in a similar vein to Vitality, Cabo, you guys do have GBM kind of sitting, waiting in the wings, and I'm curious if we'll see him come in, if you guys plan to kind of mix and match him between Joko and Series, or if we're going to see him anytime soon.
I mean, for now, I don't think it's the plan, but it's not something as well we ruled out, so time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, good to see. Maybe we'll see him come in, maybe not. Joko has been having some pretty solid performances going back and forth.
I haven't watched too much Challenger footage or CSQ, but what I did enjoy was the parody videos that Team Kinguin is producing. Like Schalke is investing like super hard in like really professional videos, and Kinguin is kind of just trolling them by just making the low budget versions. So I like personality, I like sass, because I think it's really hard for players to get noticed in Challenger very often. They need to play either extremely well. So I like that some of these orgs are either upping the production like Schalke or just making a name for themselves with whatever means they have, as in Kinguin.
You know, finding some humor in it. Good to see.
Yeah.
I like the mix-up. I like the funny videos. G2, of course, came out with one last year for LCS. Good to see more teams kind of investing either in very professional video production or you know,
just
trolling a little bit. Yeah, having fun with it overall. Making a joke. Last year was G2 at our expense, even from some of our promos. So.
Oh, yeah. We don't talk about it anymore.
Good to see, of course. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Reckless, Cabo, coming in for the whole day. And Krepo as well.
You're welcome.
I don't really know why I'm thanking you.
Do it anyway.
You're here.
Say
this
it
is
again.
your job. Well, thank you, Krepo.
Time to toss.
You happy? Are you ready? All right. Well, the European LCS will continue next week with Giants versus Unicorns of Love. But in the meantime, that's going to do it for us for here on PGL. That concludes it for week 3. We'll be back next Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European time for more EULCS action, and we'll see you then.
That was fun.
Over from Trashy, and this will be the ace. Kill secured by Wonder. Trashy is already jumping in on the squishies. Tabs and Heaver, they've been opened up on. Stand United will deliver tabs to Wonder's hands.
We need to call this, like, that they're doing this. No information. Just call, please.
Cobby goes over the wall. Tabs is doing well. All of that passive attack speed stacking. Messy fight. And it ends with Splice acing Origin.
The Splice, they bounce back, they take the 2-0, and that's exactly what they needed to do, and it was clean enough for them to be happy.
1, 2, 3, Splice!
See the dive onto Faxi, he knows something is up. Will he be able to get away? He's got his flash, but he's in the ultimatum right now. Blocking damage, they flash in. Reckless throws down the chains of corruption, and it's gonna be Caps. That follows through. Put in Room Prison, but he's gonna hop forward for an ultimatum. Betsy can't go anywhere. So as Twisted advances on, he's gonna flash, but it may just be too late. And Caps with a rampage kill.
And now the depth charge is coming. Yarden takes a lot, so as flashing forward. A moment of poor positioning. Oh my god. Piercing arrow comes in. Maxwell taking a lot of jump damage. In the redemption, he gets out. Reckless is caught and sniped down.
My bad. Yeah.
and there's nothing Fnatic can do. They're trying, but it is just not enough. ROCAT with the win on the board.
Got flash, he might have to use it, he does. Baxi, oh, he's trying to bait this one out. The 1v1, Soaz with the boomerang.
Oh no. Goodbye.
Fnatic looking to continue the push. They're going to get the inhibitor towers. A lot of this.
And Foxy, he's gone. Nowhere to go right now as he's locked up. Fnatic on top of it. They fire back. They're going to take this one. ROCAT, it was a chance for them, but it just was not enough. Fnatic will finish this 2-1. Heading into cross-group play. GG, boys. That's it.